Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be talking about commanders, or commanders that are coming new with the new set Murders at Karlov Manor. Comes out this week here in Australia for pre-release, which is really awesome. I'm really excited about that. It was my birthday yesterday. I've got friends up. We're going to be going there, and I'm really excited. There is 57 new cards or 57 reprints this set that are going to be possible commanders. This is pretty exciting. It's also interesting that there's a lot less than last time. There was 70 in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, so we've kind of jumped down 13. I guess that this time around they had like less tribally decks for Commander, so I think that there was like less reprints there, and more focusing on the little guys within the set, which is nice and interesting too. But either way, there is, a lot of different stuff here. So I've gone through and I've chosen my top 10 new commanders, and then I'm going to have one special bonus that I'm going to talk about as well, because I think it's worth talking about this reprint because it's really amazing. But before we even get into that, make sure you do subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 at the moment. You guys have been going amazing, jumping up a whole lot, so thank you so much again for all those subscriptions. And if you guys want more Magic the Gathering content in the future, let me know down below. So the first one here we're going to talk about is Anzrag, which is the new Mole God. Very cheap, only going to cost you 4 to be able to play, which is very interesting. Gruel colors, and 8/4, which is pretty strong. Whenever he becomes blocked, you get to untap each creature you control, and then after this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. Now, the best thing about this is that he must be blocked each turn, if possible, if you play, if you pay 2 green, 2 red, and 3. So obviously that's going to cost you a bit to be able to turn that online, but if he does get blocked, then you're going to be able to potentially get a whole bunch of additional combat phases. The best thing about this is that you could potentially build him as a big kind of Voltron character, where everyone has to kind of block him. So if he gets blocked, then you get an additional combat phase. This is not limited at 1. So if you're building him big and a big kind of Voltron commander, then if he gets blocked, then you're going to kill that off, and then next turn you get to kill something off. You give him invulnerability, and then all of a sudden he's just kind of rolling through everyone and just going to be able to basically be a board wipe by himself if there's no way for him to be able to die, and he's killing stuff off each time. Even if you have to double tap something, you've still got that option there because of the fact that it's just whenever he becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. So just kind of, I think that he's going to be a very interesting character, whether it's going to be as a commander or in the 99. I love the idea of, as I said, just kind of building him big Voltron and then using him essentially as a board wipe by forcing people to be able to block him. Next up, we've got Duskana, the Rage Mother. So there's kind of 2 different ways you could potentially build her, and obviously she is coming with the Disguise precon. So you can have her with Disguise, where you get to just have base 2/2 things constantly, or you could just build her with like Hate Bears, like just 2/2s. Whenever a creature you control with base power 2/2 attacks, it gets +3/+3. So then all your 2/2s are turning into 5/5s. You're going to also draw a card for each of those whenever she comes out, which is really interesting. You're going to be able to do some really awesome stuff with this, as well as the fact that here it says whenever a creature with base power and toughness 2/2. So if they've got, +1/+1 counters from other stuff or anything along those lines, then they're still going to be able to trigger this as long as they've got that base, their card says 2/2. So, there's lots of really cool stuff we could potentially build with Duskana, kind of go wide, Boros, and then use the green for ramp, or you've got a whole bunch of different stuff that you can use for the 2/2s. There's lots of really great ways you could potentially build Duskana. And along those lines as well is Dely, which is creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So if you went the way of just wanting something to be able to get all your 2/2s to be able to be unblockable until you get your Duskana out, then Dely can go into the 99 there. But I also think that Dely can make it a very interesting commander by themselves, as well as the fact that you've also going to be able to double all those triggers on anything that is power 2 or less. There's a lot of creatures that are power 1 and 4 toughness, but it's because they've got a really interesting ability or something. So you could really proc some interesting stuff here with Dely, and I would love to see people build Dely as a commander. Next up, we've got Lavaz. Lazav. I am probably butchering that, and I apologize. Lazav, Wearer of Faces. So he gets to exile a target card from a graveyard and then investigate each time he attacks. And then whenever you sacrifice a clue, which, you know, you can build some really interesting clue sacrificing decks now, you may make him become a copy of the creature of a creature card. So any creature card exiled with it until the end of turn. So there's also really interesting ways that you could potentially build him as a commander, sacrifice clues, and then make him be able to become interesting cards, as well as, you know, the fact that this part here is not, this part here is not limited to your own graveyard. So you could make him become other people's graveyard cards, or, you know, you could make him, like, there's a lot of decks out there that are based around kind of milling yourself out or milling some cards, putting them into your graveyard, and then either resurrecting them or, you know, just playing them back from your graveyard or back into your hand or something. So this here not only has like that graveyard hate of removing those cards from that person's graveyard, as well as the fact that you could turn into some really interesting stuff. So, you know, my friend has an Immerse deck that, you know, mills himself, and if he mills his worm coil engine or something along those lines, then you can exile it and then become a copy of it, which would be really interesting. Next up, we've got Judith, Carnage Connoisseur. So she is going to be an interesting Rakdos instant and sorcery spell slinger deck. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you can either choose one. Either you get to give that instant or sorcery death touch and lifelink. Now that one is very interesting because stuff like End the Festivities that deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. This with Death Touch is very, very good because it becomes a board wipe. You've just got a 1 mana board wipe with Judith on the board. You could also create a 2/2 red imp with this creature dies, and if it deals that, and then it deals 2 damage to when this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So, you know, if you don't want to give it Death Touch or Lifelink for whatever reason, then instead you can have this part where you get to create the little beastie. So there's lots of really interesting ways you can potentially build Judith as well. It's like a Rakdos kind of spell slingery deck, which isn't very common. So it's really nice to see a commander for it. Next up, we've got Marvo Deep Operative. So this is one of the ones from the Revenant Recon Precon. Okay. And then he has a very interesting ability because he is essentially a kind of Clash Matters commander. Now, Clash isn't used all that much. There's not that many kind of dimmer cards that are going to be able to use it, unfortunately. But he himself has Clash, which is really nice. And whenever you attack, you get to clash with the defending player. And then whenever you win a clash, you get to draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value 8 or less without paying its mana. So for a start, it's very flavorful. You get to play mana value 8 or less because of the fact he's an octopus, which took me way too long to get that, and I apologize to my own brain for being dumb. But whenever you win a clash, you get to draw a card. So, you know, you can fill your deck with some really high kind of mana stuff. And then, you know, when you win the clash, you get to play it. And because of the fact that, you know, you've got the high mana value stuff, you're more likely to be able to win the clash as well, because it's essentially you both draw a card, you both reveal the top card of your deck, and whoever has the highest mana wins, which is a very interesting kind of mini game, as well as, you know, just being able to draw a card whenever you win that. So there's lots of really interesting ways you could potentially build Marvo. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's got enough support to be a full commander, but if people are able to build him as a full commander, I'd love to be able to see that, because I think that it would be really, really awesome. All right, next up, we've got Morska coming from the Deep Clue Deep Clue C, that's it. Commander Precon. So she's going to make it so you have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to investigate, and then whenever you draw your second card for each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Morska, Undersea Sleuth. So for a start, look at her colors. You're going to be drawing a million different cards. You can draw so many different cards. Then you've got no maximum hand size to be able to use them. You can potentially, you turn those cards into like into big beasties, because there's cards in there that like you get this creature's toughness and power based on however many cards you've got in your hand and stuff, as well as just investigating each turn, creating clue token. Lots of ways to be able to make use of those, and lots of ways to be able to build this card up as a really, really amazing commander. We've got Nelly Borka. So she is from the Blame Game Precon, being able to, so this part here is good, really, really good, but I'm not going to focus too much on that part. It's more this part here. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deal combat damage to one of your opponents, you and the controller of those creatures each draw a card. That is amazing card advantage in your command zone, especially for Boros colors. There's not too much of that to this sheer extent. So this is really, really awesome. This part here is going to allow you to be able to activate that, and you can build her deck. There's so many there's so many red kind of goading things, whether it's mass goading or anything along those lines. There's also cards out there now in the new Precon that are going to allow you to be able to take advantage of goad even in a 1v1 situation, which is really, really awesome. Nelly is just, I really love her. All right, next up, we've got Sophia, the first full kind of dog matters commander. Obviously, we've got other ones that are kind of like cats and dogs, like Red and Seri. But Sophia is a full kind of just dogs matter. You pay 1, sacrifice an artifact token, and then you can put a +1/+1 counter on each dog you control. Dogs create food tokens, then investigate as well. You get to create Tiny, which is Scooby-Doo. Like, this is just an amazing commander, and I'm really looking forward to people building her up. And there's lots of great kind of white, green, blue dogs out there. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of red dogs that you're not going to be able to use, but I think that Sophia is a very interesting card. I'm very excited to see people build up like a dogs matter commander with her. And now our final one is Voger, which is probably the one I'm most excited for. I would say that Voger is definitely the one I'm most excited for. So Voger is going to have Vigilance, Trample, Ward 3. So obviously already protection here for him. However, this part here, whenever Voger attacks, you get to put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So X is the number of elves there. So you get to essentially kind of put out a whole bunch of +1/+1s on every creature you control based on how many elves you have. Now, I'm not a huge fan of elves, but there is a lot of elves that summon wolves, and wolves I love. I will build this commander as a wolf commander. You cannot tell me I'm wrong. I don't care about your elves. And then you get to draw cards for each wolf you control, which is really awesome. Again, more kind of card advantage in the command zone is always going to be really good and really strong. So we're going to be able to put out a whole bunch of +1/+1s based on our elves. Elves that summon wolves, not elves that just do elfy things. And then we get to draw cards. So there's lots of really interesting ways you can potentially build Voger. I'm going to build him up as a wolf commander. There's lots of red wolves, especially from like, the Innistrad blocks and stuff like that. Lots of really great kind of wolves that we can build there. Unfortunately, not werewolves, but still, like there's so many different ways that we can potentially build Voger that I'm incredibly excited. Voger is the one card that I'm super duper excited for to build as a commander here. The rest are really amazing and I can't wait to build them as well, but Voger's definitely like top 1. Now for the special kind of bonus one here, we're going to talk about Adrix and Nev just really quickly. Insane reprint here. This is a reprint that's like $20 or something plus at the moment. This is going to be in the Deep Clue C deck, and it's just going to be an amazing commander. Ward 2, and then also the doubling of all those tokens. There's so many different tokens you could potentially double here, whether it's creature tokens, whether it's you know, you've got blue in there, you've got copying. You can copy stuff, create creatures, and then copy them, and create more tokens. There's so many like ways to be able to build, like, you know, you've got food, you've got investigate, you know, there's so many different kind of things that you can potentially do with Adrix and Nev that I am so surprised that they reprinted them. So I'm incredibly excited for them to get reprinted in here. This is within the Deep Clue C deck. The card matters, like the card advantage deck and everything. So yeah, this is just our special bonus one in here, just because I think that it's worth kind of noting that they were an amazing reprint in this set as well. But that's it for today, guys. Again, make sure you subscribe. We're going to get that to that 1,000. Can we get to 1,000 before the end of February? That's what we want to aim for at the moment. I think if we can get to 1,000 before the end of February, that'd be amazing. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.